So far, I have used 1, 2, 3, 4 layers. So let's just go through them in order. I have this resource directly from Pixabay. It was already cut out as a PNG. Makes my life really easy. But I have to integrate it into the others. Behind that is this temple. What I like best about this is not the skyline. It's the silhouette of the top of this temple, and I really like the lighting on this rubble and these ruins and these deep shadows. That gives me that moody Gothic jungle feel. Looming in the background, I have this kind of cathedral with these pointed arches. And I'm going to have to cut out, that sky and have this kind of jungle background filter through. And then behind that, I've got this placeholder just because it's a digital painting and not a photograph. It's a good digital painting composite, but it's a little too soft looking, for what I want.
What do you mean soft?
Just because it's a concept painting, like everything's done with brushes.
Oh, okay.
So when I'm matching it with like straight photography, it can work in a background,
It's gonna look weird.
but it might just kind of throw it off, right? And I want it all to be believable.
Like natural.
Yeah. So this looks like it has Vaseline smeared over it, and it's all very airbrushed and doctored. And this does not, right? So that kind of mixture is a little weird, but we can figure it out. Also, the scale of it isn't quite right. So I might, at this stage, actually go back to Pixabay and actually search for I don't know if I'll get anything for this. Jungle filtered light. Nope, nothing. But let's try dense filtered light. Nope. Let's try dense light. Because all of these are based on tags that people put in for their own images. That's the hardest thing about doing something in a jungle or in a forest, is what does that background look like, right? Because I don't want it to look cheesy. So let's see. Let's just look jungle. I'm going to go ahead and log in. And it used to not show me these. It's really annoying that it's advertising to me because I've donated. That makes me a little mad. But that's all right. Yeah, it's logged in now because I can see me. All right. And I try, especially on these class videos, not to advertise to students, but it's the problem with free tools. So there's a nice jungle interior there. There's 64 pages, so it'd be nice if I can narrow this down. So maybe if I look up jungle canopy, but that's usually the top of it. Oh yeah, so something like this could be nice. So sometimes, based on what you find, you might need to revise your reference. So that's just not going to quite work for me. But I think this might. So I'm going to download it, nice and big. It's going to go to my downloads folder. Then I'm going to move it to my desktop or to my folder. And I'm going to mark it green so I see it up here. Okay, so now let's replace that background. And I can actually layer both of these in an interesting way. I'll show you very simply how I do that. I'm going to rasterize it. I can just take its opacity down, kind of layer it to be in the right place within my composition, use my guides to see. And then kind of ironically, I don't want that sun, because that sun, even though it's from a photograph, looks pretty cheesy. But I can get rid of that and like replace it with what's behind it. So I'm going to move this all behind. Yeah, I'll show you a few different ways I can get rid of the sun. Now that I've rasterized it, if I use the lasso tool, instead of just deleting it, which would leave a big hole, right? What I can do is say edit, fill, just like I would fill it with white. But instead of white, I can say content aware. What content aware is, it samples pixels around the edge and fills them in with those pixels. So it's kind of like a magic remover. And it's not perfect. You know, it gives me some artifacts there. But it's pretty good.
You would have to zoom in though to see the.
Yeah, and I'm going to be manipulating it more and more. But yeah, that might be a nice background for my Gothic. All right, but now I'm layering things up. They're looking right. But now what I've got to do is I've got to bring in the rest of my references, right? So I have next my carnivorous plant. I want that. And I can kind of remember from my sketch where it is, but if I need to, I can always move my sketch like we did for our emoji guideline. I can move my sketch now to the very top. And I can take it down, onion skin it. So it's just like 25, 24%. And then I'll lock it. The reason it's important to lock it is so if you're using the move tool with auto select layer, it doesn't just always select the sketch on top, right? This is just your guiding sketch. And then I can use this to place my carnivorous plant. And then I do a rough cut around it, right? Like I don't want any of these really, really big grasses that are cropped off. And then Command J to duplicate it. And there it is. There's a lot to blend, of course. And then my last layer, because I have more than 5, is this guy, my extreme foreground. Now it looks like the plant's already a pretty extreme foreground, so this is going to go actually behind the plant. Right there. And I'm going to grow it a little bit. Command T to transform. So Command T transforms, and then once I rough cut it like this, I just want those little sprouts. Command J to duplicate it. So we're using a lot of Command T and a lot of Command J. All right, now I've got everything rough placed. And I can see what things are in the way, right? So now I'm going to start refine cutting them based on what I want to see. And I can also move them. I can also warp them. I can adjust them in multiple ways. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is this foreground. It's going to be different for all of you. But something to be aware of is hard edges. Hard edges never look believable. So this like cut side of the photo, how do I blend it in? Well, I go to this photo, and if you want to be safe, you can lock the ones around it. But I'm going to start erasing from this in order to blend it into this. So that's why we need overlap. So for the first time, where I'm showing you, we're going to use the eraser tool. I know a lot of you were using this already for exercise 1, but I've just always used the lasso and delete so far. The eraser tool is different than just using the lasso and delete, because that's like an X-Acto knife. The eraser you can tie to a brush, which means you can use it with a tablet if you want, which makes it pressure sensitive. I can use the hard round brush just like I did for sketching. I can set the size of the brush. And then I know that it's going to erase with my tablet either smaller than that if I hit lightly. I'll zoom in so you can see. So that's me erasing very lightly. Or bigger than that. Now what you'll notice is the hard edge on it. And it gives you what's called ghosting effects. So you see all that layered? That's because I'm using a hard edge eraser. And it's also not erasing everything all at once. That's because it's at a low opacity. So when we use the eraser, we always want to be aware of the tool settings. And what we want to do is we want to use 100% opacity. So we're removing everything from that hard edge, so there's no trace of it. But we also want to use a soft edge. So 100% opacity, but a soft edge. I'm going to do 0% hardness. So now when I do it, it's like using a really good eraser that gets rid of everything, but is really controllable about its edge control.
That's crazy how it all blends in like that.
Well, and we haven't even fixed the colors and stuff yet. So it's gonna work really well. So what I'm most aware of is trying to blend out hard edges that I don't want, right? So the ones around this grass, same thing. With that 100% soft-edged eraser, I'm going to get rid of these. Because that's the background of this carnivorous plant photo. And I have my own background. Now I have to be careful when I get up close here. That gets a lot more difficult. So we'll learn how to do better selections then. But if I'm using my tablet, I can still be pretty accurate with how I erase. But this is where you might use your lasso with contiguous turned on and actually select these greens, and then you use that as a stencil to erase, because it will only erase where you've selected. And then you have to go in and kind of clean it up. And again, we're not looking for perfection here, just getting used to these tools. And often with a soft edge, it's going to be okay if it's not 100% clean. We're going to fix the color, we're going to fix the lighting. So this isn't going to be a 100% refined cutout, but I'm getting rid of the junk, so I can reveal what I want. The compositor's friend for concept art, for settings, is things like lens flares, atmosphere, mist, weird reflections, the kind of thing that J.J. Abrams as a director just can't live without.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's what will sell this environment really well. And those are things that get layered up over the top of your composite. So first you just kind of cut it out fairly cleanly. And then from there, we can make it more believable. That's already a lot better as a foreground, right? This is obviously weird, the lighting shift, the focus shift, but I'll show you how we fix that later. So now I'm onto this one, because this has background that I don't want. So I'm going to lock that one, unlock this one, and start erasing from it. Same brush. Revealing the layers behind that are all moved to 100% now. So again, I wanted these little flower sprouts, but I don't need all the stuff around them necessarily. And most importantly, I want to get rid of that hard edge that my lasso created. Instead, change it, I'll zoom in so you can see, to this blurry edge, this soft edge. So 100% eraser with opacity, but 0% hardness. And then you can just do it with a trackpad or your mouse, but then you're going to always be locked into the same circle. Like I'm always pushing hard. So if you want to get in between things, that's where the tablet can really help. So you don't have to change your brush size on your eraser in order to get a little bit better selection. And the reason I have those guides there is I don't need to work that far outside the guides. That's outside of my composition anyway. So we're getting used to this. Do not get all focused on perfection, because you'll spend a lot of time before you've practiced enough to do it well. So instead, you do it closely.